What's up, guys? Today we got a really cool video. We're here in Tupelo, Mississippi at a company called ComSouth Communications, and recently they ordered a lot of VIM tools, and we're going to show you guys how they put them to use. So you stick around for this one. Alright guys, like I mentioned in the intro, today we're at ComSouth Communications here in Tupelo, Mississippi, and about a month ago these guys ordered quite a variety of different VIM tools, and today we're going to show you how they use these tools to help them in their job. So before we get started, I want to introduce you to Mr. Philip Owens. He's a technician here and they do some pretty cool work, so I'll let him kind of explain what you guys do.
Yes, sir. My specialty here is we do a lot of police vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, basically any emergency vehicles. Company-wide, we do radio infrastructure, dispatch centers, antennas for commercial radio systems, and then the aspect that I'm kind of mainly do is the vehicle side of it. We do a lot of police upfitting, fire truck upfitting, maintenance on ambulances, just about any emergency vehicle. We'll do everything from build a ground up patrol car to put radios in combines in the middle of the field.
Well, we noticed with your order and had a lot to do with compact stuff and electrical stuff. So let's kind of talk about, I'm assuming since you guys do a lot of the radios and lights and patrol cars, you do a tremendous amount of wiring.
Yes, sir.
So
We do, we go through a ton of wire every day. These modern vehicles, police vehicles especially, there's wire, a Cat5 cable. I mean, it's unreal how much wire goes into them now. Do a lot of stripping on wires, especially small wires. A lot of these lights, like 22 and 24 gauge wire.
Oh yeah,
and
little bitty
if you use cheap stuff on those, you're gonna cut the wire up, tear it out. Good tools, good connectors, good connections. That's what it's about on those.
Well, let's talk about kind of some of the tools that you placed an order for and how these have helped you, or if they've helped you, or they work about like everybody else's or whatever. So let's kind of run through kind of this last order that you did here.
Yes, sir. Well, mainly we do, the hardest thing for us to find is stuff for compact areas, because the places we have to get in some of these things, up inside consoles where you don't have much clearance, putting brackets between seats where they're not really designed to go. And that's kind of what we were looking for, something compact that would hold up, because a lot of the stuff, I mean, if you just run to the bargain store, get something, use it once or twice, and throw it in the garbage because it's broke.
Sure.
So we wanted something a little bit more heavy duty. With the VHC77 bit set, micro bit set, we found, especially working a lot of these unmarked vehicles and stuff, we'll build bracket kits and stuff and put behind the grills, because a lot of this stuff they don't intend to be police vehicles, so they don't make stuff for it. Several trucks that I've done, you start putting brackets behind grills and in spots you can't get a screwdriver in back there from everything having now all the radiators have automatic vent systems, and you can't get in behind them with a screwdriver or something.
Sure.
And that's what we found, especially with bits like this. We can put these, we can put a Phillips bit on this little ratchet, and we can get into spots where you can't even hardly get your finger.
Sure.
And even what I found with the VHC77, we do a lot of stainless steel hardware. And now instead of having to fit a wrench up in, I can put a number 8 stainless steel screw in and use the bit driver with this to hold that from the back, and save him having to use a wrench or a ratchet on that end of it.
So the VHC77 worked out for you guys for these super tight areas. I noticed you also got the MMS 450, which is the 1/4 inch half cut bit driver set.
And reason we got this, a lot of the cages, partitions, front partitions, rear partitions, and consoles, they use hex bolts and hex cap screws, and some of those you can't really get in, and any bit just about we find is a 3/8 drive.
Right.
And a lot of times I can get a 3/8 bit in those tight spots like that, but I can't get the ratchet. And with these being 1/4 inch, especially half cut, I mean, we can put those in places that we couldn't get in before. I mean, basically we would take a 3/8 socket and try to use our fingers as good as we could, and then put a wrench bit in and do it with a wrench. And I mean, you might spend 20 minutes tightening a little screw that you could do with a ratchet in 30 seconds, but you can't get to it. And that's what we found with these, especially consoles. You put a console in between seats. This saves us on some vehicles from having to take the seats out to put the console in.
Yeah.
Because with the seats in, we can't get in there to it. These we can with the 1/4 inch drive. And especially what I like about these is you can put these on a 1/4 inch wobble and get in the spots that you normally wouldn't be able to get in with a full size one, because of how small the bit is. It'll actually go to the end of that wobble and you get extra degrees out of the movement of it.
Right.
It's even got the bigger sizes that you don't normally see on 1/4 inch. So if I've got something that's broke loose and I just need to zip it off, we're like a T50 for a seat belt. Normally we would have to use a 3/8, and now we get busted loose, we can get a 1/4 inch ratchet in there and get to it a lot easier with a large bit.
There you go. So what about the Impact 50 set? How do you guys utilize that?
The same way on that. It's so compact than small places that you normally have trouble getting a full-size socket in. Like I said, you can put a wobble on it and get to it with a ratchet where normally you wouldn't be able to get to it with an extension.
Right.
But it's so small that when it goes to the end of a wobble, it's like having an extra 30 degrees of articulation on it.
Sure.
And they hold up. What we see a lot of times on the Torx bits, if you use a cheap Torx bit, especially if you do have to put it on an impact to break something loose or a large breaker bar, it's done. You put up, I've broke no telling how many T50s on seat belts that were rusted. Like I said, we'll do a lot of vehicles that might come from up north. It's got a lot of salt corrosion.
Sure.
And you put a bit on there and a 2-foot breaker bar just to get a seat belt loose, if it comes out without breaking.
Right.
And these, so far, these don't, the bit doesn't budge. It knocks it loose and bit stays intact.
Oh, that's great. So I know you guys do a lot of wire, and I see you got the WSC 7s. So how have they held up with you guys?
Those are some of the best strippers I've ever used. If you use cheap strippers, especially on smaller gauge wire that comes on a lot of these lights, it'll actually break the wire instead of stripping it. You can tell they're not to the size gauge. These don't. When you put these in there and bite it, it comes right off. The crimper head, we use mechanical crimps on everything, because a lot of connections we see other shops do that come to us with problems, we can take the wire and pull it out of a connector.
Yeah.
And we use a lot of butt connectors in our industry. A lot of people frown on them. If you use them in the right spots, they're good. If you crimp them right, nobody crimps them right.
Yep.
You buy a cheap set of crimpers and crimp a connector on, you can pull it right out. I've actually had instances where I needed to pull a connection loose after using this type stripper right here, and I mean, you'll pull the insulation off the wire will break before the connection fails.
Right.
And I mean, we use, I'm gonna say 200 or 300 times a day.
Holy
we'll do
cow.
connections sometimes. I mean, some of these, you take a vehicle with a push bumper that's got 8 lights on it. I mean, that's 8 lights. Each light has 4 wires coming off of it to connect to.
Yeah. That's a lot of splices to do.
Pair of lights on the back. I mean, interior lights. It's unreal. A modern siren connector might have 40 connections.
Holy cow, that's crazy.
So that's something we use constantly. And
so we have 2 different models of these. You know, we have the WSC 7s, which is kind of the premium stripper that we have, and it's the forged stripper. We also have one that's pressed. Obviously, the forged is a lot better made, a lot heavier duty, you know, stripper that we offer. I know you shared a video with me through text where you actually used a competitor crimp versus one that was crimped with that, and it was quite a difference in the way they work. So I'm glad you're pleased with those. I mean, that's kind of one of the more premium tools that we have as far as the strippers go, because you know, those are the same quality as you would spend way higher on a tool truck for, you know, kind of crimper. So stripper crimper.
yes, sir. And competitive, I mean, they're competitively priced with what I call a cheap set of crimpers would be. What most people think of a good quality crimper, these are comparatively the same price as those. Right. And I mean, I've seen higher ones out there that kind of scared me off, but these, for the price, you can't beat them.
Sure. Yeah, they're good. I like, one of my favorite features is the end of it, the way it's got that little plier teeth on the very end, because I know back when we used to do a lot of trailer lights, it was always in that drip reel, and it would always just be a little bit sticking out. You could usually pull that wire through the hole and, you know, be able to make it work. But
Yeah, and I've actually pushed these through grommets to grab wires to pull them in.
they work really good for stuff like that. It's kind of like having a bonus needle nose plier when you're needing strippers. So I noticed one of the things you picked up was some of the mag rails. Obviously, this is the MR tray in green. Had you ever used any VIM mag rails before?
Never had used them before. I watched a lot of the videos on them and was kind of impressed, especially when I seen him holding the drawer up full of them and they didn't fall out. And the reason I wanted something like that, we use where most mechanics get to mainly use metric or kind of in stages. We use everything because we take the vehicles apart, everything's metric. We put our stuff in, a lot of the cages, partitions, consoles use standard, so we kind of have to have both on hand.
Right.
And that's, instead of course, the little blow molded cases that you get stuff in, when you open it 40 times a day, it don't last, it breaks. So we'd used the peg style before, and I've always had trouble. I mean, if I bump something with it, they fall off. Of course, the pegs, I've had situations where, especially in cold weather, where when you go to get the socket off, the peg breaks because it's brittle in the cold. And we climb in and out of vehicles. I mean, we're liable to climb in there and have to get in an awkward position. So we don't really want to be running back and forth to our box.
Sure.
So we need something we can carry pretty much all. So I decided to give this one a try. And I mean, like he showed on the video, I mean, they stay there.
Yeah,
I mean, you climb up in a vehicle and drag that behind you, or you have to reach in, pull it under a seat, or pull it over obstacles. I mean, it's there. It's not coming off. But when you need it, there it is.
Yep. They work great. This is something a lot of people don't even know that we have. And I know, like I mentioned earlier, you sent me a video where you guys had used this. I think it was pulling a wire through a grill or something. You was installing a push bumper or lights or something on that. But this is the MiG 20 wire puller. And, you know, a lot of guys don't think about pulling wire. You know, of course, most people don't run wire as much as you guys do in this industry, but that's definitely a cool tool that's many times overlooked, you know, as far as that goes. But a lot of people don't even know that we carry that.
Yeah, we're constantly pulling wires through grommets. Like I said, every time we put a push bumper on, we've got lights to run in from it, wires to run in from that, multiple wires, speaker wires, battery wires. If the battery's, the rare occasion if the battery's still on the outside of the vehicle, run battery wires through, and then feeding through interior panels. A lot of these new vehicles, I mean, a Chevy Tahoe, for instance, or a Silverado pickup, we'll spend 15 minutes undoing trim and the wire channel on the side just to run one wire.
Holy
where
cow.
that, you can run that right through without having to pull it all out and feed it right through. Because you can't just push the wire in there, even though it's a short distance. There's 14 other factory harnesses with clips,
all in
brackets,
the way.
and you can't get over it, which that is stiff enough to do it. And the coating that's on that makes it slick, and it'll slide over other stuff.
Yeah, every time I ever tried to push a wire through like that, there'd be like another wiring harness, and it would just hit it, and it's kind of all
Wire hit it and
bunched
just
up.
pulled up.
So here's another tool that you guys ordered, and you know, this is the storage cases that we offer, and you got that one loaded down, and it's not even full. So
We're actually, we want several of these, because like I said, we have screws, wire terminals, bolts. Every radio's got different size bolts that we might put in. We take a lot of stuff with us when we do it, so we were looking for something to kind of use to fix us a base station up with. So we tried this to see how it was going to work.
Right.
But I mean, we go to work on a vehicle with screws. I mean, instead of carrying the whole case, if we know we're going to be using 30 of these to mount light heads and stuff with, we can just take the cup out and do it.
Sure.
What set me, I've used other brands before, and they're okay, but the little sleeves that go between the bins to separate them, anytime you move that case, I mean, they go everywhere.
Yeah.
I've been at situations where I'll go to departments to work on cars, and I've had guys come out and accidentally knock my fuse box over, my screw box over, and then I'm sitting out there 30 minutes picking it up parking lot.
Get them all put back in there. That was one of the features that I really liked when they launched those, is that you could take the cups out, you know, and take them to the job where you need them. So that's a cool feature that they added in those storage cases. And a lot of people don't, you know, they may see that we own, you know, have storage cases for sale, but they may not really think about the uses that they could use those and how they're different from a lot of the ones that's on the market.
And the quality, when you see a lot of these style in person, I mean,
Yep.
they're usually real flimsy. The hinges aren't that good, and it just kind of turns you off on them until you actually see one that's actually made like it should be. And this one, like I said, this one, everything's separated. I mean, it latches good. Everything's sealed, stays where it goes.
Yep.
I mean, it's the real deal.
It does what it's supposed to do.
It.
So another one of the things that you ordered was the SD100. So a lot of people may not know or may not have seen these, but they're a really cool screwdriver set, and VIM is probably the only ones on the market that gives you the Phillips head screwdrivers, and then on the flathead, since nobody really uses a flathead,
Comes with
they
one
actually
pry bar.
put a striking cap on there, so you have a pry bar, chisel, a way to hammer it like you're going to do it anyway. But the grips on those are completely different. A lot of people, they see them, but and you try to describe it to somebody, and I've described it as it's firm but it's squishy, and they look at you like you're crazy until they actually feel one of them in their hands. But the grips is just, they're amazing on those screwdrivers.
Everybody thinks a screwdriver is a screwdriver, but my main screwdriver set I own right now is acetate handles, like the old school ones. When you get as old as I am and been working with your hands as long as I have, that arthritis kicks in. You go to using one of those to really crank down on something, you can't grip it. A lot of these light bars, this number 3 drive right here, a lot of these light bars we put on uses a number 3 Phillips, and I take one of those acetate handles and run it up in there, and it is hard to grip and put torque on that thing.
Yeah.
And like he said, the grip on these, I mean, it's almost like it's sticky when you grab it. And when you get it, it doesn't hurt your hand like an acetate handle one does, a hard handle.
Well, I know you guys have only had these for a month, and I'm going to get some close-up B-roll shots, that way you guys can see it at home, but they have put the wear on them because the tip is completely, like, all the black oxide is already wore off the tip. So you guys have,
And 90% of that
put
is
'em
probably
through the-
stainless steel screw, because we use so much we mount so much hardware.
Yeah.
I mean, every console, we're mounting fuse blocks, relays, timers. So, I mean, we go through a ton of mounting screws, and another good thing about those is the length on them. I mean, you take a console that's that deep,
Right.
and you reach down in there with your hands, you're banging your arms on the sides, trying to reach down in, and those are long enough that you can actually reach it.
Yeah. That's a good point, the length on that. So in the bottom drawer down here, you got some different tools that a lot of people would overlook too, and that's the EDM 400A. So what do you guys use these for?
The main thing I've used this set for so far, bumpers, the Dodge Durango push bumper that we put on a lot of times. You got to have a 13 millimeter socket for one of the bolts in the top part of it. You can't really, it's hard to explain, but when you try to get a ratchet and a socket wiggle up in there, it's tight reach to get it between the bumper. That thing is deep enough you don't even have to use an extension, and the throat on it will hold the bolt. And the problem I run into is I use a standard deep well socket. I have to put the bolt in that socket and feed it up in there to find that hole, and the socket is too deep. It swallows the bolt and you can't get it, so you got to use a small one with an extension. And this one, the throat is shallower on it than a deep well socket. I can actually put the bolt in there and use my hand and reach in there without having to have extensions and everything to fumble with and do it. Same way with a lot of interior trim and stuff. I mean, they might have half the length of that socket buried up in the trim to get to a 7 millimeter screw.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, you can take this and throw in your 1/4 inch ratchet and get to it. And then it just, to me, it's better than a deep well because the throat's shallower.
Sure.
And I mean, you can still take bolts and use it to guide them without worrying about it going too far on and losing your bolt.
Right.
Basically. That's and the 1/4 inch drive. I mean, you just don't see stuff like this. And 1/4 inch drive, I mean, you don't always have to have a 3/8 or a 1/2 inch drive.
Sure.
And when you're getting in a tight spot, I mean, a 1/4 inch ratchet with an extension is a lot easier to get into some of these spots we get into. So I mean, it's just nice having an array of sockets like that we can still use on our quarters.
So I noticed you've got a different ratchet here, and this is the HDR 1046. And this is kind of one of the newest of our I guess you would call them bit ratchets. They're kind of a hybrid ratchet since it does have a 3X drive head that goes into the 10 millimeter portion here. And I know you had sent me a cool video where this thing saved you a little bit of trouble. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Basically, of course, 10 millimeters, what's in most engine bays. Excuse me. A lot of plate, and of course, when we're running grounds in these vehicles, we try to use a chassis ground. We don't do the drill a hole and put a sheet metal screw in it like a lot of places do. We try to put everything to a chassis ground and make it professional. And a lot of these, I believe it was a Ford truck. One of the ground spots that's easiest to get to is next to the battery, and basically, I mean, you can't get in there with a ratchet. A lot of those I can't get in there with a 3/8. I've used a 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench before, but you don't always have that with you. Or I carry a lot of stuff in my pocket, but I don't always have everything I need. And this is so handy to have because, I mean, a lot of times I'll just walk around with it in my pocket to have it in case I need multiple uses out of it, because then, like I said, you can put a 3/8 drive, 1/4 inch drive, whichever one you need on it. But just on little things like that, reaching in next to batteries, reaching into tight spots like that, you can pop that adapter out and you got a 10 millimeter, basically a ratchet and wrench right there with you. I mean, you can put that in there and get the things that you normally wouldn't be able to reach, especially a lot of the ground positions like that. They're tucked in between stuff. Engineers.
And the lock-in flex head is a big thing to me on those versus a standard flex head. And a lot of people don't really understand that, but when you get in those tight areas, especially around the bumpers and that trim area that you're talking about, there's a lot of edges there, you know, that you're trying to keep from knocking the paint off of. And a lock-in flex head is going to stay in that same position versus wobble around on you, you know.
On that, a lot of the cars that we put bumpers and stuff on, of course, most vehicles, we put a push bumper. First thing, we've got to drop the front end bumper. We drop the factory bumper on it. Some of those, getting up in there to those spots, if you get in there with a ratchet, if you can get your hand wiggled in there, I mean, you're doing 2 clicks at a time.
Right.
And with this locking, especially the 1/4 inch drive here, I mean, you can put a 7 millimeter on that, get up in a car and fix that lock on it, and you can, I mean, this thing will go 3 times faster.
Sure, sure. You know, you guys have to deal with a lot of, you know, really specialized spots, but like everything y'all work at is on the front, pretty much, you know, that you can see. So, you know, dings and dents and scratches and scraping the edges of paint off, you know, that's a huge thing to prevent, you know, and I believe
we mess up a bumper or something inside like that, it's either, if we can't fix it, we got to have somebody fix it that knows how, and make it like new, because most of the vehicles we get are brand new vehicles. They bring a brand new vehicle in, and I mean, you buy a brand new vehicle and buy $10,000 worth of equipment, and you want that vehicle to look new when you get it back.
Absolutely. Yep. So another one of the cool things you got is the DDSUJ 400M, which is the metric 1/4 inch firm flex stubby sockets. Well, there's a testament of how strong the mag rails are right there.
There's a lesson. I put this one in backwards for some reason, but I always put that lift ring toward the front where you can reach it. Don't tuck it in like I did in the back like that. Those things, I mean, there's nothing I've seen like that sticks like that. And I've already got 2 cut places on my finger. There's one right there from that right there. Putting it on that lift right there, I hit myself with it. I mean, it will pinch you.
It'll get you.
They're not joking.
So these are a really cool set. You know, it goes up to a 14 millimeter and it goes down to, I believe it's a 5.5 on the short end, but it's dual drive. And a lot of people don't really understand the advantages of having a dual drive. So you've got, like right here, let's just take 2 that's the same height. We'll take these 2. So put that dual drive in yours, and I'm going to use the 1/4 inch head on this side. And you guys can see the difference in clearance that you'll have here. So it's probably a good 1/2 inch or so.
Close to a 1/2 inch.
You know, difference that you're going to have to do. So the dual drive stuff's kind of a game changer, you know, for guys that's like Philip that work in these tight areas, because where this may not fit with a standard 1/4 inch, he can use the RFW 11 and be able to reach in there and you know the socket's locked into the ratchet and end of the wrench, and that way it doesn't fall out. And it's going to give him a lot lower profile in these tight areas.
And it doesn't seem like half an inch would make a difference on that, but like I said, you get into some of these spots, you might not have half inch between a fender and a bracket that you're needing to get a bolt out.
Right.
Without taking 45 minutes to an hour's worth of extra stuff off.
Sure.
Which just means more time taking it off, more time putting it back on, damaging some of these fasteners. I mean, a lot of these vehicles are using plastic fasteners that you might not get but one or two uses out of.
Yeah.
And the less you have to take that stuff out, the less you have to replace it.
Sure, sure. Well, there's one tool left, and this is something that I didn't expect to see, but now that I kind of see what you guys do, I kind of see the deal with these. So explain to me the shears.
The shears, I've got several pair of cheap scissors, what they call shop scissors, which shop scissors basically means they're more expensive regular scissors. These, they have serrated, almost like a serration on them, but we cut a lot of wire loom, a lot of rubber molding that goes around lights to sell them on windshields, 3M high bond tape. A lot of times we use that to hold the bracket in place to test fit it before we screw it down to make sure it's going to work. You start cutting that with regular scissors, it just gums up, sticks all over it. I mean, these will shear right through it. They'll shear right through rubber stripping, the wire loom. We use several different. I think this morning I was cutting some 5/8 diameter wire loom with it. I mean, it just cuts it like nothing.
Cool.
And cardboard, I mean, we cut a lot of cardboard boxes up for templates. We do a lot of template cutting.
Oh yeah, because y'all building all those special brackets, and
so a lot of times we'll make a cardboard template first to test fit it and everything. And I mean, we'll take corrugated cardboard and cut with it. And I've cut loom. I mean, wire. I've cut wire with it. When you get into some old spots on wire that were taken out of these vehicles, I mean, a lot of times they'll cut something off one of these auction vehicles or something. They just, whenever they decommission them, they cut it off at the body. They don't care. And I mean, you might need to reach up in there and actually cut something loose to where you can pull an old light out. And I've actually put this up in holes and cut wire with it.
There you go.
It will do it.
Well, Philip, I definitely appreciate the tour and appreciate you kind of going over some of the different stuff that you purchased, you know, from VIM, and kind of explaining how they help you in the business that you're in. And we definitely appreciate you letting us come out here today. And I think everybody at home will enjoy this video as well. But anyway, guys, that's the video today. Hopefully you like it. If you do, hit that thumbs up and click that subscribe button, and we will catch you guys next time. Y'all have a great one.